Hey guys, this is Brent, and today we're going to look at the best sunset images I could find online and some of mine. So we'll start with this one, which is one that I took just a couple of weeks ago. It's a sunset that I photographed down the road from where we live, and it's of a wave. It was quite a big day for surfing, and the sun setting just behind there, and I photographed it at a very fast shutter speed. I think it was about 1,000th of a second or something like that, at least 500th of a second, and I photographed it with a very long lens, 400mm lens, so that I could get the sun nice and large in there. You can see the birds flying over there too, and I got the wave just at the right moment. Sometimes it's a little difficult to focus when you're photographing into the sun like this, but this made it all the worthwhile. Okay, so let's have a look at some images I found online that really impressed me. Now, this first one is a great image. It's a long exposure sunset image, similar to the images, or similar to the way that I teach how to photograph an amazing sunset on my website. They used a long exposure, probably a neutral density filter, to get the water like this, to get it looking really milky, and to get the clouds to be moving like that. And he's probably used, well, I know that he's used a graduated ND filter also to darken the sky, because I can actually see the top of that rock is a little bit darker than everything else, and that makes the exposure of the image a little more even, so the sky and the water down here is more evenly lit, and you can get the exposure in one shot. So that's a great shot by that guy. Here's another one that I really liked, also a 600mm lens, so that's a very long focal length lens, zoomed right in. Photographed at a relatively slow shutter speed for that lens, at that focal length, so it must have been on a tripod, and I just love the way the person is silhouetted against the sunset over there. So that's a great image too. Here's another one that I found. It's definitely an HDR image, a high dynamic range image. It's the other method that I teach in my amazing sunset photography course. And that way you can actually capture a very bright sky and a dark foreground and make them more evenly lit by photographing 3 different exposures on top of each other with your camera on a tripod. And it just makes it a lot easier without having to use filters to actually photograph the sunset. So it looks like this person, Lincoln, photographed an HDR image, 3 different exposures, but it looks like he may have even waited until after sunset to get that cloud movement, and it's a long exposure also, and a HDR image. So here's another one that I found that I liked, which was an HDR image. The reason I know it's an HDR is photographing into the sun like that, there's no way you'd get any information. This would be way too dark, the foreground, to get the sun like that. So this person has photographed 3 different exposures also to expose the foreground, to make sure that we've got information in the foreground and the very bright sunset. So that's a great image, and I like the boat over there in the really still water. It gives me a great feeling. Here's an HDR image which I wanted to show you because I think it's overdone a little bit, and to me it just doesn't look that real, even though it's a great shot, and there's the sun setting behind this structure, this old house over here. It just looks too HDR for me. There's too much information, it's too bright in the foreground and it's too dark in the sky, and it just looks a little bit overdone, overcooked for me. Alright, so here's another great sunset photograph I found. There's ice on the beach, so I don't know where this is. It looks like it's a black sand beach too, so it's just an amazing image. I think she photographed it at 1 second, so relatively slow shutter speed, a wide angle lens, and just an amazing photograph. So she calls it fire and ice or something like that, so it's just amazing. They've got the fiery sky and the ice, the cold ice in the foreground, so that's another great sunset photograph. Here's a cityscape sunset photograph, and I think it's Sydney, which is a few hours from where I live, and another great long exposure example where they've got movement in the sky, the sun setting over here. I don't know if this person used a graduated ND filter, because the buildings over here still look quite light. Normally with a graduated neutral density filter, if you've got it down there darkening the sky, you normally have a line through these buildings. So Possibly they used, I know that they used the big stopper, there it is, that's the 10-stop ND filter, to make sure that you got a very long shutter speed, 153 seconds, which is quite a long time, f11, which is a good aperture for photographing landscapes, a wide angle lens, 16 millimeters, and then that's given us the movement in the sky, and I guess the water down here, the wharf and the boats and everything will be nice and smooth. So another great long exposure image of Sydney, of a cityscape. Here we go. This is another one that I really like. This is the Kalahari in Africa. It's a silhouette sunset, wildebeest kind of scratching the ground. So you've got these clouds over here of dust, and when there's a lot of dust in there, that's when you seem to get the best sunsets, because the sky really goes red, and it's just a beautiful photograph. And he's photographed that with a long lens, I'm guessing, 600 millimeter lens, so that's a very long lens, but just a great silhouette shot. Difficult to photograph because you're photographing right into the sun, so a little tip when you're doing that, you underexpose your camera by 2 stops. And the last one on the web that I found, another great silhouette shot with the reflection in the water here, just an awesome, a 10-second exposure, so a pretty long exposure. So it's I guess it is a long exposure sunset, so we've got a little bit of movement in the clouds, but way more movement in the water over here. Just a great sunset shot. And this has got to be one of the most amazing sunsets I've ever photographed. It was down the road from me. We were on the beach with my family and kids and dogs and everything, and the sky just lit up, and this is just amazing. So I'll scroll to the left a little bit. This is a huge panorama that I photographed. So it's a bunch of photographs that I photographed in the HDR mode. So I photographed 3 exposures on top of each other, and I created a panorama out of it. So it's just an amazing sunset. I could not believe, I was so happy that I actually photographed this. So that's just my last image. Anyway, those are the best photographs of sunsets I've found online. Make sure you check out my website. I've got a new training series all about how to photograph an amazing sunset. Anyway, this is Brent, and have a great day.